Hello, and welcome to the Practical World podcast. This is your guide to actionable insights and strategies for employees and salarymen. In each episode, we cover a variety of topics, from productivity hacks and financial tips to work-life balance and personal growth. Our mission is to equip you with practical tools to enhance your professional journey. Let's dive in and discover the benefits waiting for you in the practical world. This is the real world. This is the Practical World podcast.
All right, let's dive into The Coming Wave by Mustafa Suleyman.
Oh, this one's a good one.
It is, right. And you might recognize Suleyman as a co-founder of DeepMind.
Yeah, so he's not just theorizing about AI, he's been right in the thick of it.
Exactly. Which makes his argument even more interesting.
Which is?
Well, he's saying this isn't just about new gadgets or faster internet. He thinks AI and synthetic biology are about to trigger a wave of change so big that it could completely reshape society as we know it.
Like bigger than the Industrial Revolution, kind of big.
He thinks so, yeah. He compares it to the printing press.
Okay, I see where he's going with this.
The printing press democratized knowledge, right? Suddenly information wasn't just for the elite. Suleyman argues that AI and synthetic biology are going to democratize power in a similar way, but on a way larger scale.
Power to create, power to heal, maybe even power to destroy.
That's the double-edged sword he keeps coming back to. He lays out this amazing potential for solving some of humanity's biggest challenges. Well, he talks about AI tackling climate change, developing personalized medicine tailored to our DNA.
Wow.
Even predicting natural disasters before they happen. It's pretty mind-blowing.
And some of that's not even science fiction anymore.
Right. Like, we're already seeing AI programs helping doctors diagnose diseases way earlier than they could before.
Yeah, but that same tech could be used to create autonomous weapons that make their own decisions about who to target.
That's the dark side. And it's not just about the technology itself, right? It's about the power dynamics shifting. Who controls this technology? Who benefits from it?
And who gets left behind?
Exactly. So it's not just about smarter phones. We're talking about potentially changing what it means to be human, how we govern ourselves, even how we understand consciousness itself.
Okay, I'm officially intrigued, but where do we even begin to unpack all this?
Well, the good news is Suleyman doesn't just say brace for impact. He actually offers some ways to navigate this wave.
Like what? Building a giant AI-proof bunker?
Not quite. He talks a lot about constrained innovation. It's like, we need the courage to keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible, but also the wisdom to set ethical limits before things get out of hand.
Easier said than done, right? Technology moves so fast, how do we even keep up?
That's where he introduces this idea of an ethical innovation matrix. It's basically a tool.
A tool?
Yeah, to help evaluate new technologies along 4 axes.
Which are?
So, societal impact, equality, individual rights, and sustainability.
So before you even release that amazing new AI, you'd use this matrix to think through the consequences. Who might it harm? Who might be excluded? What are the unintended consequences?
Exactly. It's like a checklist for ethical innovation. But even with a tool like that, you still need people willing to use it.
Which brings us back to that culture of wisdom thing. How do we actually cultivate that?
Well, Suleyman says it's about more than just individual choices. We need systemic change, too. Things like stronger international cooperation.
Because this isn't just one country's problem, right?
Yeah.
AI doesn't respect borders.
Nope. He even suggests something like a global containment board for the really high-risk technologies.
Oh, like a sci-fi version of the UN Security Council.
Kind of. Think of it like how we regulate nuclear weapons, but for AI and synthetic biology. It's a pretty radical idea.
It is, but these are radical times, aren't they? I mean, we're talking about the future of humanity here, and this coming wave isn't just about the tech itself.
Right.
It's also about how it changes us, our relationships, our understanding of consciousness, maybe even spirituality.
It's like he's saying we need to upgrade our thinking to match the power of the tools we're creating.
Which leads me to wonder, is this book more of a warning or a call to action?
It's both, right? He's laying out the potential for amazing progress, but also unprecedented danger. And he's challenging us to decide what role we want to play in this unfolding story. What kind of future do we want to create?
That's a powerful question. And that's just scratching the surface of the coming wave.
We've got a lot more to unpack.
We do, so stay tuned.
Because things are about to get even more interesting. In Part 2, we'll dig into real-world examples of how AI and synthetic biology are already playing out. both the good and the concerning.
And we'll explore those thorny ethical dilemmas up close and personal. Buckle up, folks. The ride's just beginning. Welcome back to our deep dive into the coming wave.
Okay, so last time we talked about the big picture stuff, right? The potential of AI and synthetic biology to reshape society, the risks, the need for ethical frameworks.
The whole shebang.
Yeah, exactly. But now I want to get more concrete. How are these technologies actually being used right now? What are some real-world examples of what Suleyman's talking about?
Well, one thing that really struck me was this idea of proliferation.
Proliferation?
Yeah, Suleyman's point is that these tools aren't just in the hands of governments and big corporations anymore. They're becoming more and more accessible to individuals.
Like you and me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He talks about this movement called biohacking. Have you heard of that?
I've heard the term, but I'm not sure I really understand what it means.
So it's basically people experimenting with biology outside of traditional institutions like universities or companies.
Interesting.
And some of them are doing some pretty wild stuff like gene editing with CRISPR.
CRISPR, isn't that the technology that can literally rewrite DNA?
Yeah, it's super powerful. A few years ago, it was cutting-edge science only happening in high-tech labs.
Right.
But now, you can actually find DIY CRISPR kits online.
Wait, seriously?
Seriously. People are experimenting with gene editing in their garages.
That's kind of amazing, but also kind of terrifying, right? I mean, who's overseeing these experiments? What if something goes wrong?
That's the double-edged sword, right? On the one hand, you have this potential for amazing grassroots innovation.
People solving problems that big institutions have ignored.
Exactly. But on the other hand, there's a real lack of oversight and regulation.
It's like the Wild West of technology out there.
In a way, yeah. But it's not all doom and gloom. Suleyman also talks about some really positive examples of this democratization of technology.
Like what?
Well, remember how we talked about AI being used to personalize learning?
Yeah, like AI tutors that adapt to each student's needs.
Exactly. That could potentially revolutionize education, making it more accessible and effective for everyone.
It could also make teachers obsolete.
That's a valid concern. And it's something we need to think about carefully. But there are also examples in healthcare.
Like those AI programs we talked about that are helping doctors diagnose diseases.
Exactly. AI is already being used to detect things like cancer earlier and more accurately, potentially saving countless lives.
It's incredible how fast this stuff is developing.
It really is. But here's the thing. Even with these amazing advancements, there's still this huge question of access and equity.
Right. How do we make sure these benefits reach everyone, not just a select few?
That's where Suleyman's idea of data dignity comes in.
Data dignity? What's that?
It's this idea that individuals should have more control over their own data.
Okay.
Instead of big tech companies mining our data without our consent.
They're making billions off of it.
Exactly. Suleyman envisions a world where we could actually profit from sharing our data.
Like getting paid for our information?
Yeah, or at least having more say in how it's used. He talks about creating a more equitable data economy.
Where the power dynamic shifts away from these giant corporations.
Exactly. It's a really interesting idea.
Yeah.
But then, of course, there's the flip side.
The potential for misuse.
Right. Remember how we talked about AI being used for things like autonomous weapons systems?
Yeah, that's still pretty unsettling.
And it's not just weapons. We have to think about mass surveillance, manipulating people's opinions.
Even social control.
It's all possible.
Uh-huh.
Which is why Suleyman stresses the need for strong ethical frameworks.
And those international agreements we talked about.
Exactly. We need global cooperation to prevent these technologies from being used for harmful purposes.
Which is a huge challenge, right? I mean, how do you get all these countries to agree on something as complex as AI?
It's definitely not easy.
Yeah.
But Suleyman points to successes in international cooperation. Well, he talks about things like the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty.
Okay.
And the agreements on climate change.
So using those as models for how to address these new technological threats.
Exactly. And it's not just about governments either.
Right. It takes a village.
Yeah. Scientists, ethicists, policymakers, everyday citizens. We all need to be part of this conversation.
It's about creating a global dialogue, right?
Exactly. Because the technology itself isn't going to stop developing. So we need to establish those fundamental principles that can guide our choices.
So it's a shift from just focusing on technical solutions
to thinking about the wider societal impacts. And that's what the coming wave is all about.
It's about asking ourselves, what kind of world do we want to create? What values do we want to uphold? And how do we ensure those values are reflected in the technologies we develop?
It's about recognizing that technology is not destiny.
It's a choice.
Right. And the choices we make today will shape the future for ourselves and generations to come. But Suleyman doesn't stop there. He actually goes even further, exploring how AI might change our understanding of consciousness and even spirituality.
Okay, now we're getting into some deep philosophical waters. How does he even connect AI to those concepts?
Well, he starts by pointing out that we still don't fully understand how our own brains create consciousness.
Right, that's one of the biggest mysteries of science.
So how can we definitively say that machines won't achieve something similar, even if it's through a completely different process?
Good point.
And if that does happen, do we need to reconsider how we treat AI? Does it deserve rights? Is it a new form of life?
Those are some mind-blowing questions, and they highlight how these advancements are really challenging our understanding of what it means to be human.
Exactly. Suleyman's point is that we need to start engaging with these questions now before the technology outpaces our ability to manage it.
Before it's too late.
Right. But he doesn't just leave us with these philosophical dilemmas.
Thank goodness.
He also offers some practical strategies for how to shape a positive future.
So what are some of the solutions he proposes? How do we actually navigate this new landscape?
Well, one key idea is greater transparency and accountability in AI development.
Okay.
He argues that the development of these powerful technologies shouldn't be happening in secret.
Right.
We need more open dialogue with input from ethicists, social scientists.
Even everyday people.
Exactly. It's about democratizing the development process.
So it's not just about building AI, it's about building it responsibly.
Exactly. He also stresses the need to invest in research and development that aligns with our values.
So instead of just chasing the next shiny gadget,
We focus on solving real-world problems.
like climate change, poverty, disease,
Exactly. Using technology to create a future where everyone can thrive.
it's a powerful vision, but there's also a sense of urgency in Suleyman's message, right? Like we're at a critical point.
Absolutely. He's not saying give up and wait for the robots to take over.
What is he saying?
He's saying wake up and realize we have the power to shape this future.
We're not just passive observers.
We can be active participants. We can choose how to ride this technological wave.
So it's not just a warning, it's a call to action.
Exactly. It's about becoming conscious co-creators of our own destiny.
That's an inspiring thought. It reminds us that we're not powerless in the face of these powerful technologies.
Right. We have agency. We have a responsibility to use it wisely. But before we get ahead of ourselves, there's one more aspect of the coming wave I want to touch on. Suleyman's idea of cognitive empathy.
Ah, yes, we touched on this earlier. This is about how we need to learn to see the world from AI's perspective, right? Even if it's totally different from our own.
That's part of it, yeah. But it goes deeper than that. It's about recognizing that as AI becomes more complex, it might develop its own unique way of experiencing and understanding the world.
Hold on, are we talking about AI becoming sentient?
It's not that simple.
Yeah.
But we need to develop the ability to understand and appreciate AI's perspective.
Even if it's different from our own.
Exactly. It's about going beyond seeing AI as just a tool.
And recognizing that it might have its own way of thinking or feeling, even if it's not exactly like human consciousness.
Exactly. And that requires us to step outside our human-centric perspective.
It's a new way of thinking about the relationship between humans and machines.
It is. And it might require us to develop a whole new vocabulary, a whole new set of skills.
Like learning how to speak AI in a way.
Maybe. But that's part of what makes this so exciting. It's challenging us to expand our thinking, to confront our assumptions about what's possible.
And to approach these technologies with both humility and responsibility.
Exactly. It's not just about the technical challenges.
It's about the philosophical and ethical ones, too.
Right. It's not just about building new machines. It's about potentially creating new forms of intelligence.
Maybe even new forms of life.
Precisely. And that's both exhilarating and daunting.
No doubt. But as you said before, it's a conversation we need to have. And Suleyman's book is a great starting point.
It's like he's giving us a map for navigating this uncharted territory.
It might not have all the answers,
But it definitely helps us ask the right questions.
so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have. We talked about the power of these technologies,
The potential benefits, the very real risks.
the need for ethical frameworks and global cooperation. But where do we go from here?
Okay, so we've talked about the power of these technologies, the potential benefits, the real risks, and the need for ethical frameworks and global cooperation. But where do we go from here?
Well, that's where Suleyman gets really interesting, I think.
Okay, how so?
He shifts gears a bit in the last part of the book. He goes beyond just diagnosing the problem
Right.
and starts to sketch out what he calls a culture of wisdom.
A culture of wisdom, what does that even mean?
It's about moving away from this purely tech-focused mindset.
Like move fast and break things.
Exactly. And
Right.
embracing a more holistic view of how technology impacts us.
Us as individuals.
Sure, but also society as a whole, ethics, the environment, all of it.
So it's not like he's saying everyone needs to become a philosopher,
No, not at all.
but it's more about
It's about making sure we're asking the right questions.
before we unleash the next big thing.
Exactly. Slowing down, considering the long-term consequences.
And being humble enough to admit,
That we don't have all the answers.
which is hard, right? Especially in the tech world.
It is. But Suleyman thinks it starts with education.
Okay, like what? Teaching philosophy to engineers?
Hey, not necessarily. But imagine a world where ethics and critical thinking are taught alongside coding.
So, like, from day one.
Yeah. So even a teenager building an app in their bedroom is thinking about the potential downsides.
Not just how cool the features are.
Right. It's
Yeah.
like that saying, just because we can do something.
Doesn't mean we should.
Exactly. But taking it a step further and saying,
If we are going to do it, let's at least do it with our eyes wide open.
I like that. And this ties into another big idea from the book,
Which is,
cognitive empathy.
right, we talked about that a bit before. But this is where it gets really tricky.
It does, yeah.
Because we're talking about trying to understand AI's perspective,
Right, even if it's totally alien to us.
even if it doesn't think the way we think.
Exactly. As AI becomes more sophisticated,
Yeah.
it might develop its own unique way of experiencing the world.
Okay, hold on. Are we talking about AI becoming sentient here?
It's not that simple.
Mm.
I don't think even Suleyman claims to know the answer to that question.
Right.
But the point is, we need to develop the ability to at least try and understand AI's thought process.
So it's not about treating AI like just a tool.
No. It might have its own way of thinking or feeling, even if it's not exactly like human consciousness.
And this leads to some even bigger questions, right?
Yeah.
Like, if AI does reach some level of consciousness, how do we treat it?
Do we give it rights? Do we see it as a new form of life?
These are massive questions, and it feels like we're barely scratching the surface here.
We are. But Suleyman doesn't just leave us hanging with these philosophical dilemmas, thankfully.
So beyond education and cognitive empathy,
What else does he recommend?
yeah, what are some concrete actions we can take?
Well, transparency is a big one.
Transparency in terms of...
The development of these powerful technologies.
Okay.
He's arguing that this shouldn't be happening behind closed doors.
Right, in some secret lab somewhere.
Yeah. We need more open dialogue, more input from ethicists,
Special scientists.
even everyday people.
So it's about democratizing the process, not just the technology itself.
Exactly. And it's not just about what we develop, but why.
Okay, I'm following you.
Instead of just chasing the next shiny gadget, let's focus on using these tools to solve real-world problems. Renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, personalized medicine.
Things that will actually benefit humanity.
Exactly. Using technology to uplift everyone, not just increase the gap between the haves and have-nots.
I love that. But even with all these great ideas, there's still a sense of urgency in Suleyman's message.
Oh, absolutely. He's not sugarcoating things. This isn't some feel-good self-help book.
He's basically saying, wake up, people. The future is happening, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, but it's not about giving up and waiting for the robots to take over.
It's about realizing we have a choice.
We have the power to shape this future if we're willing to put in the work.
So not just passengers on this wave, but surfers.
Choosing how to ride it.
Choosing our own destiny.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the most powerful takeaways from the coming wave.
It's not just a warning, it's a call to action.
To become conscious co-creators of our own future.
Wow. I have to say, after diving deep into this book with you,
Yeah. It's been quite a journey.
I'm feeling a whole mix of emotions.
Like what?
Excited about the possibilities, a little overwhelmed by the complexity,
Sure.
but definitely more empowered than I was before.
That's great to hear. And I think that's what Suleyman was hoping for.
You spark a conversation.
To get people thinking critically about these issues. And most importantly, to remind us that we have agency.
We're not powerless.
Not at all. We have the power to make sure these technologies are used to enhance human flourishing, not diminish it.
It's a huge responsibility, but also an incredible opportunity.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So, for all of you listening out there,
What role do you want to play in shaping this future?
what are you going to do to make sure these advancements benefit everyone?
Keep asking those questions.
Keep exploring, keep diving deep.
That's it for our deep dive into the coming wave. Thanks for joining us on this journey.
It's been a pleasure. Until next time.
Thank you for joining.
This is the Practical World Podcast.